Interested in creating content people want without breaking the bank? In this episode of the series, I'll be going over the exact gear that powers this podcast. We'll break down the audio, video, and organizational tools I trust daily. Also, stay through to the end because I go through a very quick sequence of how each is used for the podcast in order. Thank you for watching the free Time Mastermind Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Gaines. And at about the 3-month mark of doing interviews with entrepreneurs, I decided to do a major upgrade on the audio side of the podcast. I went into Guitar Center with a list of things I needed, handed it to the guy over the counter, and he immediately looked at his buddy and said, "Now this is a man that knows what he needs." The reason why he said that is I had a recording studio in the late 1990s, so I'm well versed in audio. Although the mic that I had at the time, it worked very, very well, but I had decided, okay, I'm 3 months in, this is working, I'm enjoying it. Plus, I was going to narrate my own audiobook. So I had very good reasons for justifying the expense for the mic. And I bought the mic that I'm talking to you on now. You can't see it, but it's just barely out of view. It's the Shure SM7DB, which has an internal amplifier in there. Definitely not cheap, but that's not your only option. I'm going to talk about what I started with, why I started with it, and why I changed to the SM7DB and your options if you don't want to spend as much money. I would encourage you not to spend a lot of money in the beginning until you're absolutely sure, because a lot of podcasters don't continue past their 4th episode. Make sure you're at least 8 episodes in before you decide that you really want to drop some money. On a good day, podcasting can be very rewarding. On a bad day, it can be a very expensive hobby. If you go back to those early episodes, you'll see I have one of those fancy bone conducting headphone microphone combinations. One, that was something I was using for work, so I already had it, except I painted it white for the channel for some unknown reason. Also, the audio quality is good. I will tell you this, I didn't have to spend that much money. If you're going to buy a cheap microphone, then you definitely need to do 2 things. You need to have the microphone close to your mouth, not so much so that you're getting a lot of puzz and buzz where you can hear all of those things, because the further away the microphone is from your mouth, the more it picks up the room, outside noise, and I have this mic slightly further away from my mouth than I normally would. So I have the gain turned up, which means when my neighbor starts to cut their lawn, you might be able to hear it. If I had the microphone closer to my mouth, I could turn the gain down and you absolutely wouldn't hear anything unless somebody was knocking on the door to the house. There's 2 different types of microphones. There's condensers. There are also dynamic mics. I'm using a dynamic mic. I'm using the same thing that the Joe Rogan podcast does, except mine is actually a slightly more expensive version because the SM7DB, which means decibel, has an internal amplifier. And I decided to buy another amplifier to connect it to, and I'll talk about that as well. Whatever you're going to spend on your channel, spend the money on the audio way before you worry about the video. Now, can you just run a podcast on your iPhone or your smartphone? Absolutely. With the proximity effect, again, you want to be close to the phone. That's another problem. So I see a lot of podcasters that are just beginning. They're shooting on their phone, which is great, but they're too far away from the phone. And I'll add some samples here so you can hear some really bad audio.
Them uploaded because I didn't know if they do multiple narrators or not.
Do you think there was a cost savings doing it through Fiverr versus? The further the guest is away from the microphone, the more it picks up the sound of the room. There's a lot of echo and there's a lot of noise. Whatever mic you use, if you can get as close to your mouth as possible, you don't have to spend a lot of money, but even if you do, you still have to be very close to the microphone. On the podcast, your audio is going to be chronically too low because you're too far from the microphone, or you're going to have your gain turned up really high to compensate for that distance, and it's going to create a lot of noise. And I'll give you an example right now. So I'm on the standard gain that I use for the amplifier, and I'm going to just turn this up. I'm not going to say anything on the mic because I don't want my voice to blow you out, but I'm going to turn the gain all the way up, and you're going to hear this horrible hissing sound. Okay, now I'm back to the regular setting. So you could hear that it increases the noise. I can't hear it. I don't have my headphones currently in, and that's another thing. If I was on an interview style podcast, I want to hear what I sound like, and I want to hear what the guest is saying. Now, I'm so familiar with my own setup. I don't do that when I'm shooting solo content. I have a thing that I can see on screen. You can't see it, but just to my right is a level meter on screen inside of Descript, which I'm currently using Descript to shoot. And I can see that the levels are going up. I can see how high they are. So I already know that I'm speaking at a good high volume. And so my proximity is fine. So I can get away with a little bit more proximity because I'm doing two things. One, this room is insulated, so sounds aren't reverberating all over the place. So I can get a little further away with the mic without all the echo happening in the room because the room has been dampened. Number two, I'm projecting my voice more. So I'm intentionally speaking with more volume, being conscious that I'm further away from the microphone. Now, why don't I like putting the microphone in camera? I used to. I did it a lot. But what we're finding, myself and other content creators, are it looks more natural. Me standing here talking without a mic in front of me, without headphones on. So this is a personal conversation between you and I, and it feels more organic that way if you get the mic and the devices out. So the only other thing I would say that other content creators are doing is they're using more natural backgrounds. I manufactured this background behind me. If we have enough time, I'll talk about what this thing actually is behind me, because the room that I'm in, that's not the back wall of this room. The room's a little bit bigger, but I constructed this behind me just to have some kind of backdrop. But here's the thing. The audio is important because it doesn't matter whether you're going to be a YouTube podcaster or you're just going to put audio on Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, all of those great audio-only platforms. The audio has to be good. And even on YouTube, I forget what the percentages are, but I'll put on screen here somewhere what the percentages of people that actually don't watch the YouTube video, they just play the audio. So the point to all of this, the audio has to be right. If you're going to buy a cheap mic, your mouth needs to be close and your room needs to be dampened. No, I didn't have a stroke. I paused this to add the additional information. I never explained what I meant by dampening the sound of the room. So I do a couple of things. I have extra heavy moving blankets that I bought from Amazon on the walls. They do a great job of keeping noise going on outside from coming inside, and it keeps my voice from bouncing all over the walls and making that horrible overtones that you heard in that other video. Above my recording station, because I have my desk pushed very close to the wall, which is not ideal, and I have a big monitor that also causes reflections. So above my recording area, I added a 4-inch mattress cover, the kind with insulation, the cheapest I could find. I'll put all of that in the links. On my desk, because desks also reflect, I have a giant desk pad. It looks like a monstrous mouse pad. I'll put that in the description. Since I have a 2-tier desk, the top tier is where the monitor is. I have a cloth laid all the way across the top tier. So bottom tier, right where the keyboard and the mouse, a desk pad, and then I have a cloth at the top. So there's a couple of things going on. The ceiling above me, this whole area, again, about the size of a full-size bed, has 4 inches of foam. It's basically a mattress topper. And then on the walls, I have heavy moving blankets from Amazon and what I mentioned on the desk, the cloth at the top tier and the large desk pad. And so that gives me a very dampened sound. Now, the room that I'm in does have a reflective floor. It's a snap-in wooden flooring. It would be better if it was carpet, but again, I'm so close to the mic that it doesn't really matter and everything else is taken care of in the room. So I've covered all my bases. So it's still close, but it's to the side of your mouth. The reason for this is so that the P's and B's and T's don't blast that little capsule of the microphone, which are very sensitive. So me being on the microphone for so long and having narrated my own audiobook twice, the first edition and the second edition, I've learned really good mic discipline. So if I'm going to sneeze, which I've never done on camera, but if I'm going to drop a bunch of P's and B's and T's, I naturally start to move away from the microphone, and I'll say them in this way because the microphone is right here in the middle. So I'm practically speaking into it, but it's at least this far away. You really don't want the microphone more than 4 inches away if you're looking for a guideline. And if it's a cheaper microphone and you don't want to turn your gain up, you probably want to have it even closer if possible. So I see a lot of people getting the wireless microphones that they clip on. Those are fine. They're very limited in their range as far as the range of the voice, so it's going to lose some of the nuances of your voice. If you go back and watch some of my first couple of episodes where I'm using that headset, I think the audio is decent because you don't hear the room at all. I'm speaking right into the microphone. It's very close to my mouth, and I think it's effective, but it pinches down the sound of my voice. I have a deeper, more nuanced voice, and the SM7DB has a larger capsule. In other words, the part of the microphone that captures the vibration of the voice is larger, so it's going to pick up more nuance. I'll put in the description some of the cheaper microphones that I think are good as well. You don't need to start with that headset because I was using that for work. I'm not a big fan of wearing gigantic headphones. If you want to start out, so cheapest, you can start out just using your smartphone for the video and the audio, but have your mouth as close to the microphone as you can and make sure the room that you're in is treated. And make sure you really pay attention to the audio on the playback before you upload it. The next step from that, I would say, is a good headphone microphone combination, like people that work in a call center. I personally can't stand the feeling of big headphones on my head. I purchased Shure. These are 425s. They're very expensive, and you don't need to do that. I have some hearing loss, and I'm very picky about the quality of the audio for the channel. Plus, I was doing the audiobook, so I needed to hear exactly what was going on. What's great about these is they go down into the ear canal, and a bomb could go off outside, and I wouldn't hear it. The big headphones, I don't like what it looks like visually on camera, but number one, you have the phone. That's the absolute cheapest option because you probably already have one, so you don't have to buy anything, and you could even do interviews on there. We'll talk about some of the software that you can do to do interviews on a smartphone as well as a desktop. The second part of that is going to be your headset. It's better to have the audio going through your ears instead of out of the speakers. That's another thing too. All the feedback and noise and everything. If my guests, if their audio was coming through the speakers that I have on the other side of the screen, it would also dump into this microphone and create that feedback loop. At the very minimum, the system's going to sense that and force the volume down. The audio's not good. So you have to pump the audio into your ear. Whether you're going cheap, whether you're going expensive, have some kind of headset on. So cheapest option, smartphone. Next cheapest option, like a gamer setup, gamer headphones with a microphone. And there are some very affordable options that way. If you have an audiobook to narrate and you want to go total pro, SM7DB is hard to beat. These Shure 425s are fantastic, but you don't have to go that far. Links for all of this are going to be in the description. Let's talk about what comes next. When I initially started the channel, I had this fantastic video editor named Javon Winston. I highly recommend him. When I changed some things about the format of the podcast and got more familiar with the program Descript, I started doing the editing myself. Plus, I started doing a lot of solo content since I'm more familiar with the flow of that. Script was the way to go. You can spend a ton of money on very fancy video editing programs, but I needed something that did two things primarily. Cut a video on that I can edit down a podcast episode, and number two, something that would create shorts. The biggest advantage, I think, to Descript is it has a lot of AI tools. They have a AI assistant called Underlord, and I'll share with you in a little bit what it looks like on my screen, how I do these episodes. It's script-based editing, which it's going to be easier to show you that on screen. I can use special prompts to create these shorts, which I'll share with you what my prompts are for creating the shorts. Before we go into the software, I want to talk about video very, very quickly. Now, there's a million rabbit holes you can go down for video, so I'm just going to give you the most important information. I did most of my podcast with a 1080p webcam, and that was fine. It looked great. You can start with your phone. It's no big deal. The webcam is a step up from there. typically, because the phone does a whole bunch of different things. And of course, with the webcam, you can utilize your PC or your laptop. So you have that additional functionality and you're not tethered to the phone, because if you're in the middle of a podcast and somebody calls you, it could be complicated. So I was very happy with the Logitech webcam that I used. I upgraded to the Canon R50. That can shoot 4K. The other reason why I went to a much better camera is for B-roll, which I haven't started shooting yet, but B-roll is just other video or images that you shoot that you can insert into content. I've been so paranoid about changing my setup here that I don't even want to move the camera off the stand that I have it on, which is the same stand that I used for the webcam, and I'll include that in the description as well. I love that thing. I've actually got 2 of them. If you get really fancy, you'll want what's called an A-B setup, which means you're going to use 2 cameras. So let's say you just have your iPhone, which again is more than sufficient, and use a webcam. You can have 2 stands and have one shooting straight on you and one shooting at an angle or from the side, and you switch those angles back and forth. So a lot of people on YouTube like to see what's called a lot of dynamic video. I don't do a lot of that. My viewership is hurt by that because I don't want a bunch of jump cuts constantly. I'll insert images like I have on this video, but I don't do a bunch of cuts. So webcam is a step up from your phone, and then you get a digital camera or a digital video camera above that. The reason why I got the Canon is also it's great for photography, and I can change different lenses. So the current setup I have is the Canon R50 and the 10 to 18 lens, which is perfect for podcasters, especially podcasters that like to sit close to the camera, which I do. Everything is very close right here. Another thing to remember when it comes to cameras is, as far as your resolution and how many frames per second and how much data you're saving, you're still going to be constrained by whatever program you're recording with. So I might have a webcam that's 1080p, but if I'm recording with Zoom and I'm doing a live video being transmitted to YouTube, for instance, it might only be recording at 720, and it's not even using 1080p. So right now I'm recording directly to Descript. I am recording 1080p. The camera is shooting 4K, but the moment it offloads into Descript, it gets down to 1080p. So this video will be going 1080p to YouTube. The advantage to shooting 1080p and above is that when you're cutting shorts, naturally you're only going to see about this much of the screen. You want the face of the person talking in, so it's going to cut it down, but it's also going to make my head bigger. If you've got low resolution, if you're shooting in 720 and then all of a sudden magnify that for a YouTube short, it's going to look a little blocky. The higher resolution you're shooting, if you're cutting shorts, when you magnify an image, you still retain pretty good resolution. So it's not a big deal. You can look at all of my shorts are probably 720 and they're not horrendous. 2 things that go together with cameras and lighting. If you look at my old videos, you'll notice that I'm very poorly lit. I was using stick lighting at the time. The stick lights were good, but they were too far away from my face. So they would have been fine had I brought them closer. I understand things about videography now that I didn't know a year ago. The stick lights are fine. If you're on a budget, you can just go get lights from Home Depot, and I'll put those links in the description so you can see what I'm talking about. You can buy them on Amazon too, and you could put very powerful compact fluorescent lights in there that are equivalent to 100 watts. Get about 2 of those. They've got clamps. You can clamp them on top of your monitor or wherever. They're fine. You could also do a ring light. There are some really high-end ring lights. A brand on YouTube, which you'll see a lot of suggestions in the description, is a brand called Neewer, Neewer. They produce very high quality equipment for the money, so it's very budget friendly and quality. I had the Neewer stick lights, and then I upgraded to LED panel, or what eventually would be a box light. So lighting is extremely important, because you could have the greatest camera in the world, but if your scene is poorly lit, it's going to look terrible. They suggest to have one light really powerful and the other one slightly less powerful. And I also have lighting behind me that you can't see. So there's 3 little lights behind me that are shining on this background. You've got your camera, you've got your lights. Then the next constraint is going to be whatever your recording software is. So I've just recently figured out how to get script to shoot 1080. I think the solo stuff before was at 720. So I just assumed the camera's resolution was driving what the ultimate resolution was. That's not the case. So I'm still learning things as well. So what we'll do next is I'll do a screen share, and I'm going to go through all the programs that I use in the order that I use them so that it'll make sense. This is going to be a very high level overview. Obviously, there's not enough time to teach 5 or 6 programs, but I just want to show you what I do, why I do them. And I'm very cost conscious. You wouldn't think so with the expensive mic that I bought and now the expensive camera. But prior to all that, I think I had some really thrifty options. And none of these programs I'm suggesting are anything I could currently do without. I think all of these absolutely are required. I have a business interview style podcast, and I don't think I could take any of these pieces of software out and still have the same quality that I do. So I would say everything that I'm about to suggest to you is an absolute necessity for this style of podcast, and then you can decide what you need or what you don't need. If your budget was basically almost zero, you could go smartphone with Zoom, and you could even do the free Zoom. I don't know if the free Zoom does live on YouTube or not. Obviously, that would be, you don't need any editing at all. You're just going to shoot a podcast, and whatever said is said, and you're just going to upload it. Also, too, straight from your phone, you can do live on YouTube, but I don't think you could interview someone else unless they're sitting in frame with you. So again, I think that the smallest number of moving parts you could get down to as an interview style podcaster is Zoom, because that helps enable you to shoot video along with another person, and then the smartphone. So that's it. So smartphone and Zoom is the most basic setup. Okay, so let's create a scenario. The recent guest that I had on the channel, Vanessa Mares, I found her on YouTube. I saw a great video that she shot. I went to her page, much like I'm on my page, and I got her contact information. I simply went here. Again, I did this on her page, but I clicked to view her email. And so let's just pretend this is someone other than myself that I want to reach out to. I'm going to copy this email. I want to show you my email. So I'm sending this other person an email, and I'm just going to say invite, if I can spell, invite to a podcast. And then I'll give my pitch. The reason why I'm showing you this is I use a branded email. It is mastermind.com, which is the URL, which is the name of the podcast. You don't have to do all that. You don't have to have a website. There are ways you can just have a branded email without a website, but I do have a website, freetimemastermind.com. And obviously I have RG, which is Robert Gaines, at freetimemastermind.com. If you want to get better guests, you don't have to do this now, but later on in the process, you can own your own URL, because you do want to move traffic to a website at some point, because you don't own the traffic from YouTube. You don't own the traffic from TikTok or any other platforms. We'll talk more about that on the monetization video that I'll shoot later. But just for now, to know, it's easier for me to get professional guests and guests with larger reaches because I have this professional type of email. Down at the bottom is a photo of me. It personalizes it. They can see I'm not some crazy looking person. I don't know. You might think I look crazy. And it's got the name of the company. It has the website, and then it even says that I have the book. Now I can change this to host because my default signature is basically me as an author. And there you go. You send your custom invite. I just bring that up because that's an extra layer of professionalism if you want to do an interview style podcast. The other way I get guests is through Podmatch, and I already did an entire video on it. It's the video preceding this one. I won't go too deep into this, but let's just say I found this great guest that I wanted to interview on Podmatch. And again, I'm just showing my profile for the sake of example. I'll send them a message to invite them to the show, which then they say, yes, they're interested. Then I send them a Calendly link. And I use Calendly for a couple of different things. I love it as a booking software because it does a bunch of different things that a lot of other softwares don't. Zoom does have its own calendar that you can buy as an add-on, but you can only book Zoom meetings. I can use Calendly to do a phone meeting, to do an in-person meeting. It's fantastic. It integrates directly with Zoom, so that's a big win for me. So if I set a Calendly, like if you look here at the bottom, you'll see that these meetings are integrated automatically with Zoom. So whoever books this will also get the Zoom info to be able to go into Zoom. So it's one-stop shopping. I've also set it up to have them get reminders automatically via text and via email for the podcast. So that's why all of my guests have showed up. And the other thing that it does is I have a disclaimer that they have to agree to on there. Now, Podmatch already takes care of that, but I just like this extra layer of security. They just have to click yes. They don't have to type a bunch of stuff, and it's not very long. So I love Calendly. Podmatch has got great software that's somewhat similar to this, but Calendly is much more powerful. So I'm going to keep using both. All right, a very cursory glance of Zoom. This is what I record my interviews on. Again, solo content. I've just started shooting with Descript the last couple of episodes. But because Calendly and Zoom integrate, I'll send the potential interviewee a link to my Calendly. They book it, which also then creates a future Zoom meeting set for exactly the same time. But just to show you what this looks like if you're not familiar with Zoom, I know many people are, but typically if there was a meeting scheduled for today, a podcast episode, I really have two varieties. I'm doing a lot of 30-minute live interviews broadcast directly to YouTube. So we're using Zoom to communicate with each other, and that's being simulcast to YouTube instantly and live. Those will sometimes later get edited and uploaded as a pre-recorded episode. Now, if you look at the older interviews on the channel, those were pre-recorded. We would normally record for about an hour, and I would edit those episodes down to about 40 minutes. Well, Javon Winston would edit those videos down to about 40 minutes. So if I had one scheduled for today, I would probably have already gotten a reminder, and right here in this booking screen, it would show the episodes or the meetings that were scheduled for today. If I wanted to do one just quickly, I found somebody online and they said, let's just go now. I can either set it up to do a YouTube Live, which is a little bit complicated and it involves YouTube's integration, and I won't go over that. There's plenty of videos about how to do that. But just to show you how to get a meeting started, it's not showing anything right now. Typically when I would click this, I would see video and audio, but it knows that Descript is pulling the video and audio signal right now, so it's not coming up. So normally I would see myself and I could see that the volume was working, and then I would click start. So this is how I was doing solo episodes before. I would just click start and shoot. Zoom is limited to its resolution, and a lot of the big time podcasters, I haven't talked about competing softwares, and I'm not going to, other than to say a lot of podcasters, when they really upgrade to the next level, let's say I built my own studio and I had an AB lighting set up and AB camera set up, and it just gets really fanatical, then I'll probably go to OBS Studio, or there's some sophisticated programs that are for podcasters. Let's go to Descript and let me see. This is the video that we're shooting right now, and it's transcribing what I'm talking about, and it will drop it here in a moment. I don't know if it'll let me leave this screen. I'll give it a shot and try to see. No, okay. So I won't be able to do that. I'll shoot a video with Zoom doing a screen share, looking at Descript and how I edit those videos. All right, so what you're looking at here is the recorded track of actually the video you're about to see, that the video that you're watching now, because I have to shoot this part in Zoom because I can't record with Descript looking at Descript at the same time. So this is the intro for the episode that you're going to see. And this is just a generic name for now. And of course, you see myself on screen. And then you can edit by the script. So when you upload a video into Descript, it converts it into a script. that you can then, instead of, you can edit by the video. So I could just cut out chunks of the video, or I could just choose a few words and cut those out, and the edit is going to be the same. So one thing that's really easy to do, and again, this is not a tutorial, it's just a high level overview of the tools that I use for the podcast. So if I want to decrease this 4.4 seconds of silence to give this a little bit more pop, I'll cut that down. I do that more for the shorts, so the shorts need to be fast and choppy. And let's see what I started for the interview here for the beginning of this episode. So hopefully you'll be able to see this. Interested in creating content people want without breaking the bank? In this episode of the series, I'll be going. So you notice there was a little edit there. There was a little jump. Without breaking the bank. In this episode, see that little jump? So that was from tightening up or eliminating some words in the script. This program has a number of tools that I can use. So the AI tools are fantastic. I can add captions, which I usually only do for the shorts. I can insert media. Let me open this screen up a little more and see if I can find some media that I dropped in here and what that looks like. There we go. I've got the logo here. I just literally pulled from my desktop the icon for my podcast, the podcast logo, and dropped it into this timeline. And I actually pushed this out. I pushed this space open so that I could drop this. And I was creating a transition between two ideas. So this is what it looks like. And this is a little sound that I got off of the media library. So I went over here to audio, and this I've searched, and I really like this sound a lot. I've used it a lot recently. It's called Introducing Logo Stinger Sound number 3. And I can fade that sound in. It can come in. Same thing with this logo. I can slowly fade it in. And as you can see, it has a fade out, and there's also a fade out on the audio as well. So this is what it looks like on screen for the podcast in order. Thank you for watching the Free Time Mastermind. So the audio is not going to be great because you're probably getting the audio through my microphone. As you can see, since you've watched most of this video to get here, you can tell that the audio is actually good. So it shows this icon that there's music, but I can take this, I can make it smaller, I can make it bigger. What you're seeing, and I'll go over to properties. So these properties are what affect this logo, because the logo is highlighted in blue, for instance. So I'm on the logo. Here are the elements. I can change the opacity. So you'll notice that you'll be able to see through that logo, and there's nothing behind it. That's why it's black. If there was something else behind it, you'd see it. Visual effects, I used a regular fade out, which is this where it slowly fades out. And then I used a Ken Burns for the intro, which makes it slowly shrink like that. And I just tried to sync, and I played around with how long this should be. I can show the logo longer. I can show it shorter. I can increase the fade. I can make it faster. I can make it slower. Same thing with the music. So let's say I want to slowly fade in this music, taking almost 2 seconds for the track to fully increase its volume. And then, of course, it's going to quickly fade out. So there's almost 2 seconds there. So listen to how different this sounds in order. So you notice that was very, very slow to come in, whereas here it would be very strong on the intro. Podcast in order. And then the fade. Thank you for watching. And then the volume comes in really hot there. Actually, I'm going to edit that right now. This is way too hot. See how subtle the signal is going in? And then all of a sudden we have this really hot audio. Now I can fade it in like this, but that's fading the audio and the video. Early in this episode that I was an audio engineer, these tools, Descript, didn't exist back then, and I didn't know anything about video editing prior to this. So Descript, I think, is probably the easiest program for somebody with virtually no video editing experience to come in. So what I want you to notice on screen is that the logo is fading out and I'm fading in. So that's what's happening there. As this logo begins to fade out, my scene, which I pulled behind it, is more prominent. I'm going to look for an instance. There we go. So now I'm talking about a microphone, and I'm going to fade in 2 different types of microphones. And again, you've already seen this part of the video, so you know what's happening here. It's the Shure SM7DB, so you see it's a slow fade in for both. When it stops, they're not going to fade out. They're just going to drop out. So you see they're in frame, and then they're just going to disappear instead of fading. Definitely not cheap, but And I try to hit, obviously, the disappearances on the beats of the words. That's really the music engineer in me. That's a quick dive on that. If I wanted to take this episode, which is not finished yet, but eventually, once this episode is completed, I will go to these AI tools. One of the most powerful things that Descript has is this thing called an underlord. I can create clips, but a lot of times I'll go straight to the underlord. Early in the video, I had promised to give you my prompt for Descript. So here it is. If I'm going to take a full episode, whether it be an interview or solo, and I want to create shorts for YouTube, which is the only place that I'm currently posting shorts, this is my prompt. I'll say, now, usually I'll ask for 7 clips if we're talking about a video that's gone more than 40 minutes. If it's under 30 minutes, it's going to be really hard for it to find 7 really strong clips. But here it reads, make 7 clips under 60 seconds with a strong hook in the first 6 seconds. High contrast captions that are large. All clips must be optimized for YouTube Shorts, which just tells it what the size of the video needs to be, and then it needs to be vertically oriented. Berlin Carat Light, which is one of their color codes. Always use typewriter captions at 150. So typewriter captions is a style of caption at 150 point font, obviously the size of the letters. No specific brand colors because it always asks me that. And then I'll say make at least 1 camera zoom per short clip. So on those camera zooms, let me see if I can find a short that I've done recently. So notice the orientation here, the vertical. Let me see if I can find a good one. So you see I've inserted captions. I've got music the whole time, which again came from the music library. This is going to take a second to load up, but let's see what we've got here.
That doesn't work. You get maybe 30% of the people that opt in like that. Instead, send the next message. Great, what's your best email to send it to? And then we had 169 of the 247 people give us our email address. So that's 169.
All right, so you get the idea. So his head's a little bit off. So you see the full interview screen might have been this big, and I can shove this over a little bit. That's how easy this is. Now, it would be better to make his head a little smaller, but if I do, I'm going to cut off the top and you're going to get the background. But that's okay. You can even it out. And one thing that I like, look at this. It's trying to help me line everything up. So now it's lined up top to bottom, left to right. So now his head's fully in frame. Now I will say on this video, he moved a lot to the left and right, and he was very close to the camera. So it's hard to not miss his head on certain parts, but that was a really...
It doesn't work. You get maybe 30% of the people that opt in like that. Instead, send the next message.
If I wanted, I can get rid of these captions or change them. So let me go up to, I'm using Special Elite. Let me use Noto Sans. I'll change the color to red, and that's changing the highlighted color inside the text.
That doesn't work. You get maybe 30% of the people that opt in like that. Instead.
Now the audio comes in pretty hot. If I want to fade that in slowly, because it does start a little hard, but for shorts, you want it to pop. You want to grab their attention. Obviously, people that are really good at shorts make them perfectly in a loop. In other words, you play it to the end and it almost seems like you don't realize that it's looping over and over, which ups your view time on your channel. But I personally don't care about that. Maybe at some time in the future I might, but for me personally, I just like the music to match and it to go with the beat. And as long as it's somewhat interesting and highlights the episode, because ultimately, what's the purpose of this short? The short is to get people to watch the full episode.
That doesn't work. You get maybe 30% of the people that opt in like that. Instead, send the next message. Great, watch.
And then at the end, of course, I started to do the branding. And then what I've evolved after this is I do the branding for the channel, and I'm dropping my book in there because people said that I wasn't pushing the book hard enough and I didn't want to be too salesy, but now I'm dropping usually the book in here. So you'll see the logo, you'll see the book, and then it goes back to the logo. But this short was cut, I think, a couple of months ago. So this is how it ends. And you notice I have a fade out on the video. The logo will fade in, the logo will fade out, and the music is already naturally set to fade out. Now, of course, the logo is not fully in frame. I'm not so concerned about it. I can live with that. And then I would just simply export this to the desktop. I like to save the actual file. You can give it to, you can have a web link. I always do local export. From what I understand, Descript is currently having issues with integrating with YouTube because of some changes YouTube recently made. But you can see clearly you have a ton of options. But I love the local export. I'm just going to put it on my hard drive, and then later I move it off to a separate big jump drive that I use just for the channel. Resolutions, you have a lot of options there, and I've already talked about resolution earlier in this video, so no need to go over that. So that is Descript in a nutshell. It's got great AI. Underlord, you can ask it to do many things. You can create the clips, you can ask questions. Even on a full interview, you can ask it to do some things. You don't have to peck through here. You can come up with some standard things you do each time to your podcast. I think for the money, it's hard to beat. And for somebody with no video experience to be able to come in, I felt like I really had I understood this program. I learned about 80% of what I needed to learn on this program after about 6 weeks of playing with it. So a month and a half, I feel a lot more comfortable. And I didn't watch that many videos. I just played around with it. Once I understood that it all works on a timeline and that I can just edit the script or I can edit it manually down here, then it was pretty easy. And I just grabbed these handles to fade in, fade out, crossfade, different things like that. So I think it's much easier. There are really high-end programs that are much more expensive than Descript, but Descript does a bunch of different things. And you have to be careful with this, but Descript can also, the AI tools can create images, generate entire videos from scratch. So they have this AI integration. You can translate, which that's going to be great. I'll be using that at some point. You can blur a speaker's background just to give them a little bit more privacy if you want. I have not generated a video from scratch because they do have this incredible media library. So let's say if I type office, you'll get full videos of offices, office work, very high resolution and varying lengths. You can go show all, and it's going to have a bunch of high resolution videos. You see a lot of nature shots. Also, too, let me just say tree, just to look for. So, well, I'm just going to type tree because you see you've got videos, you've got GIFs, which I always have trouble with the GIFs performing in here, static images, GIF stickers, and backgrounds. Backgrounds, obviously, if you have yourself virtually on screen, you can have this as a kinetic background. So if we've got tree and I want all tree videos, you can see they have quite a lot of video options. Now, as you add all of these elements into your video, you're going to really increase the size of the clip. So just be aware of that. We've got a few that are 4, 5, 6 gigs, and it's not because we shot in high resolution. It's because we have so many elements, music, video, logos. So there's Descript in a nutshell. Let's go over VidIQ, something that I started using about 2 months ago. VidIQ is a comprehensive YouTube optimization and AI-powered growth tool designed to help creators increase views and subscribers. We have the definition. Let's actually look at the program. These are niche outliers. These are not my videos. These are just ones that are trending really well. So it does pull other channels' content so you can see what's working. I primarily use VidIQ for 3 things. I do channel optimization. So right here, it's suggesting that I add tags to these. This is a short and this is a full length. Number 2, I use it to create the thumbnails for the channel. And then I would say the third most important thing that I do is I will use its suggestions for the YouTube videos, but I do that inside of YouTube itself, which I'll show you separately. So I'm just going to show you what happens when I use some of the suggestions. So it's saying, hey, this video could be more popular if I add these tags. And this is just one click. This is going to automatically integrate with YouTube. So clicking here is also going to make changes on my YouTube channel. And it will just continuously, because I have hundreds of videos, because I have a lot of shorts on there. It's also telling you what's currently popular on YouTube so that you could potentially do a episode on that. So it's going to keep feeding me these suggestions until I'm all caught up and all optimized. I did hit 5,000 subscribers recently. It does give me these nice milestones that are unlocked here. I would say 80% of the time I use vidIQ as a thumbnail generator. And I can use some images that I already have, or I can have it suggest brand new things. What I have here, small trailer for a series. I know I look a little crazy there. I just gave it verbally what I wanted. It does have photos of me, so I do like to use my own photos in the thumbnails. This is a compilation of photos from previous guests that have been on the channel. So let's take a look at how I put that together. So I just dropped a photo of myself in here. You can see how easy this is to edit. I don't want to mess this up too much, but I just pulled these photos. I took screenshots from the YouTube videos and just dropped them in. You can take a full photo like this, remove the background. You can flip the images around. This is easy. And then once that's done, you can tell this AI what you want done. I can make the background different. This isn't meant to be a vidIQ tutorial. Just want to show you what my tech stack is. I actually took two books and a photo of two books that look exactly like this, except the books were in English. And I asked it, I said, just take the images of these two books and convert it and translate it to Spanish. And it did. The image of the English version looks exactly like this. It just changed the language, which I thought was pretty neat. It goes to show you how powerful AI has become. Sometimes I'll also use it to create graphics that I'm going to be using inside of episodes. I'll use this type of content inside of a video itself, but this is a thumbnail for an episode. This is a thumbnail, a thumbnail, a thumbnail. I created this since it's in the shape and format of a thumbnail, but I actually used it as part of a video post, and I used the same for this. So I use it for a lot of different things. It's a very quick way to put thumbnails together. You can describe what you want. You can use a reference. So if you want to upload a photo that you already have, see if I can get on something that's going to be pretty easy. I'll just grab my little badge that vidIQ gave me for reaching 5,000 subscribers, and I'm going to come up with a new thumbnail idea, and I'm going to say, make a thumbnail that says how I gained 5,000 subscribers. There we go. Not perfect, not fancy. It's just a quick one-off. I would tweak this a little bit if I was actually going to use it, but it just shows you how quickly you can integrate an existing photo or theme and use it to create a thumbnail. But you can see I've used it quite frequently for thumbnails and for creating. I created this for a video I was shooting, which is the one that you're watching, but I did not use this after all. And this was a concept that I decided not to use. So that's vidIQ. When you go back to the home, I can publish these tags. I can take the suggestions. I can ask it how to come up with ideas. But what I want to do now is switch to screen share and show you what this looks like inside of YouTube. Now we're taking a look at my YouTube. Let me go straight to my channel. You can see that I have the vidIQ plugin here. I can use vidIQ to not only look at my stats on my channel, but I can also look at other people's channels. If I go to this news video, I can actually see their views per hour. I can see how well other things are doing. So if I click on this video, you'll notice these stats will change. That is incredibly powerful if you're trying to mimic a certain type of style or a certain type of channel. Let's see if this gives anything. It gives a scorecard. If you want to use that for research and find out what works and what doesn't. Let me go back to my channel. You can see vidIQ side of my YouTube studio itself. It is a browser extension. I have issues with it. Inside of Chrome, using YouTube inside of Chrome, no problem. But using the standalone program in Chrome, I have issues and I have to go back to Mozilla Firefox. Let's take a look at the most recent video in this series. And the video you're watching now is the one that comes after this one. It's giving me some suggestions. I can do some A and B testing on titles. Here are some suggested titles that they think are better than the one that I came up with. Actually, I think this was probably generated by vidIQ. Sometimes I don't have a great score here. This is vidIQ is making suggestions, and it's even giving some suggestions of when I should post it. If you click this button, it automatically takes all of vidIQ's suggestions and makes changes. And then it's giving me suggestions of things that are performing very well, a lot of times this content isn't aligned with what I'm doing. I'm a business channel, so unfortunately these suggestions aren't as relevant. But I wanted you to see how vidIQ works. Again, it's great for the thumbnails. If I've got an underperforming interview and I feel like the guest did a great job and I feel like the editing was good, then I will start to look at little things like tweaking the titles, especially if a video is not getting sufficient amount of attention. In other words, if people aren't clicking on the episode to begin with, then at that point, I am looking at titles and thumbnails because that's what gets people into the video. Then I can look at the statistics once they've looked at the video and determine at what point are they dropping off on the video itself. That's a very quick look at vidIQ, both the standalone and the browser extension. On the previous video I shot, I explained PodMatch, so I'm not going to go too deep into that. I want to show you how I use ChatGPT. So this is where I get my guests from. About 80% of the guests come from PodMatch. It's a fantastic service, especially if you're a host looking for guests. You don't have to chase them around for links and information about themselves. So what I'll do, hit Control A to grab everything and then Control C to copy it. I will go over to ChatGPT and I'll say, attached is a guest profile I will be interviewing. Give me 10 engaging questions that are not common. I like to ask unusual questions. Also suggest a title and description for this YouTube interview. I have the paid version of ChatGPT, so it already knows I'm talking about the Free Time Mastermind podcast. I'll put colon and then I'll paste all of that information from my page, which would be the guest page. And then it's going to start generating 10 questions. Now, I almost never use the questions as they're written here. I just use them to riff off of or to use them as starting points. Sometimes if I have a guest on, I may have as much as 20 questions ready. I've never had an interview where I ran out of questions because I always have way more questions than I have time for. And that's good, just in case the conversation is really good and they want to stay long. I will usually take about 3 or 4 of these questions and modify them more to my voice. I'll use some influence and get some ideas from the rest of these. Then while I'm researching the guest, I'll look at their content elsewhere outside of PodMatch. Like I might take a look at a couple of past YouTube videos they've shot to see their style, and that'll help me generate some other questions. This was all explained in the PodMatch video, but since we're talking tech stack, this is an important part where we're integrating both PodMatch and the use of AI. So I also have used AI to come up with individual photos and images to insert inside the podcast. I've also used it sometimes to create thumbnails. I would say vidIQ and Descript are both much better at creating images. I've covered the entire tech stack. This is one part of a multi-part series. The videos before this, actually, let me go back to my channel. This would be the best way to show you. Here you see this is the trailer for the series. This is episode 1. An overall experience about being a podcaster. This is all about how to get good guests and what makes a good guest, the characteristics of a good guest. Very short, full of impactful information. This talks about PodMatch, which is a deeper dive into how to use that if you're going to be an interview style podcaster. Even if you're going to be a solo podcaster, I encourage you to get in here because there's some tips and techniques that you could use. Plus, you may eventually want to interview guests. And this video that you're watching now is on the tech stack. We will have more videos in the future. I know that I want to talk about monetization. All right, so I've got to cover one more thing. I am primarily a YouTuber. So I run a interview style business podcast on YouTube. That's the best way to say it. I also send these audio only versions of the podcast to RSS. Now, what is RSS doing for me? They are distributing my content, the audio only, to Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music. It also goes to Deezer, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and TuneIn. I'm able to drop an episode. So if I want to start a brand new episode, I can drop just the audio. I can drop the cover art, which is usually the YouTube thumbnail, although I should be using a different size. I don't. I just borrowed the title from the YouTube video. I borrowed the description from the YouTube video. And then I just have kept these all in sequence from day one. And then I upload it. And once I upload it to RSS, it automatically transmits to all of these services that I mentioned. So if you go to Apple Podcast and type in the Free Time Mastermind, you'll find this. Same for Spotify and Amazon. I'm going to show you my analytics, and I'm going to say up front, the analytics are very poor because I was on RSS and then I deleted everything off RSS because a lot of people weren't listening to the audio only. And I decided to make some changes and then just re-upload everything. So this is all basically new. It will show you that I'm not getting a lot of downloads on here. I had a recent peak. I'm not sure what episode they're going crazy about. I don't have the paid account. This is one of the few things that I've described on this video series so far that I don't pay for. I just don't see the value in it because, again, the episodes aren't that popular. I'm not even pulling enough to get monetized through here. If that changes, I might consider getting the paid plan. Right now, it doesn't make sense. I consider myself primarily a YouTuber, and I'm really big in Singapore, apparently. For some reason. When I had the paid account, it would actually show me I might be popular in Ukraine and different countries and really odd parts of the United States. One guy was way out in the middle of nowhere in Nebraska. So it's kind of fun. But if you want to start off doing audio only, you can upload to YouTube first. It doesn't matter. How I normally will do this, and this is going to involve another program. I use Audacity. This program is absolutely free. I do donate to the people that design this. Anytime I get a new computer, I re-download Audacity because it's a great piece of software. I use this for audio editing. I use this for the narration of my audiobook. It's a great program, very easy to use. And all I'll do is find the latest episode that I record and I'll drop it in here, which I am taking the original video file that I shoot on camera and I'm dropping that in here. And then I just export it as an MP3. I do this if I'm going to edit the episode, I edit the video first so that I don't have to go back and then re-edit just the audio version. So I'm dropping the edited video version in here, and then I'm just using this essentially as a converter, and I convert to MP3, and then I fill out all of the information to create the new episode, and I upload it. As you can see, you can set these episodes to publish in the future. That does truly cover the entire tech stack. That is how the sausage is made on the Free Time Mastermind podcast. We went through the entire tech stack, all of the gear. Links for everything are in the description. If you want to purchase any, I have discount codes for you. Some of those have an affiliate commission. The video that I'm going to shoot later about monetization, I'm going to talk about how much you make for different things and what's worth it and what's not. So I hope you don't mind if I make a few cents if you make a purchase, because when you start your podcast, you're going to want to make a few cents. This video you're watching is only one episode of a multi-part group. We have several videos ahead, some of which that cover the monetization. I'll also talk about the strategy separately in a different video of how I grew my channel so rapidly. The subscriber count sat for months and months at about 200. And then now, as of today, just barely over a month later, I have 5,000 subscribers. I will detail in a video how all that was done. That's probably going to be the last video of this series. The episodes are getting plenty of views. We've had a lot of recent subscribers, so thank you so much for that. Once the next episode is ready on this series, you'll see on this screen a button for you to click on to go to that. So I hope you enjoy all videos of the series. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the comments, and I hope to hear from you. Thank you so much. See you on the next one.